Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic Roundtable Show. This is episode 310, and we're recording this live at 8:30 Pacific Standard Time on July the 13th, Friday the 13th. What could go wrong? That's what I say to myself. But there we go. We're troopers. We'll fight through it. We've got a great special guest. We got Matt Medeiros from the Matt Report joining us. So it should be a lively discussion, to say the least. I'm going to let the panel quickly introduce themselves. I'm going to start with Matt. Would you quickly like to introduce yourself to the audience and viewers, Matt?
Sure. MattReport.com. It's a podcast I do about WordPress, and I work for a great hosting company called Pagely.com.
Yes, you do. Sally, would you like to quickly introduce yourself?
Certainly. My name is Sally Getch. My business is WP Fangirl, and my East Bay WordPress meetup is sponsored by Pagely, among others. And today is my 51st birthday, and after the last couple of days, I don't feel a day over 102.
Congratulations. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Adam, would you like to quickly introduce yourself?
Sure thing. Hey guys, my name is Adam. I have a website, WPCrafter.com, where I make WordPress tutorial videos for non-techies.
That's great. And Morton, would you like to quickly introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Morton. I make educational materials for LinkedIn Learning, and I have opinions about things.
That's great. That's why you're here. And John, would you quickly like to introduce yourself?
Sure thing. My name's John Locke. I do SEO for manufacturing and industrial firms.
Sounds great to me. Right, let's go straight into it. The first story. A quick introduction to...
I like how prepared you are.
No, it was. I've written them all out. I just had a moment. I just had a brain fart. A quick introduction to Gutenberg, the new WordPress block editor. So you did this, Walton, did you? So I'm not going to ask you straight away. What I'm going to say, John, did you have time to have a quick look at his video?
Oh, I did, yeah. It's very interesting. What do I think? I think it's still early days. Gutenberg, in the way that it appears to be right now, is somewhat similar to Medium, but I think it's a good start. The biggest thing that people are going to notice if they install this is, or when this rolls into core and unexpectedly shows up at your doorstep, that the editing experience, instead of having just a big blob of text, maybe take like Word document and paste it in there, each paragraph you can individually control and make into different things like a subheading or a block quote, and control at a granular level the things like the font size or the background color or color. So I think that'll give people more flexibility than they're used to seeing, and I'm want to see where future iterations of Gutenberg go.
What did you think, Adam?
I think Morton's a very smart man, and he's the person to listen to in these early days, and he's got opinions about things, and his opinions, actually, I like his opinions. He's a polarizing person, which we'll tie into a later article maybe, but I'm not ready for Gutenberg at all. I do think that there's some interesting things that are just now starting to happen. So you had this come out with Morton, and he's kind of leading the charge there. And then you had Atomic Blocks is a new WordPress theme that is specifically for Gutenberg. So you got a lot of things that are now starting to happen. It is like early days though.
What did you think, Sally?
I did not get a chance to watch this video because I saw the notice right before leaving the house Wednesday, but I have been keeping up with a lot of Gutenberg stuff, and I am getting very excited. I have seen enough of Morton stuff to know that if he made a video, it's good and it's worth watching, so I'll be seeing it later.
And what did you think, Matt?
I'm going to echo the panel. I think that I definitely appreciate Morton's opinions on everything he touches in the WordPress space. I actually, contrary to popular belief, I don't mind Gutenberg. I just don't know if it's the right feature set for exactly right now, but for the future, yes.
Yeah, I think your position has been quite clear, really. I think it's been quite fair, actually, Matt. Yeah, Morton, I thought you did a fantastic job for, as a kind of introductory video. I thought it was superb. Why did you decide to release it now, and what was the thoughts behind it?
It's a ploy.
Yay, Morton.
It's the main reason was because we need the people who actually use WordPress to be aware of what is happening with WordPress. And so far, we've done nothing to make them aware of it. The platform I have spans very far outside of the WordPress sphere. And that's why I decided to put this video together. I did a lot of work internally in the company to allow me to make a video for LinkedIn Learning and put it on YouTube on my own channel, and put it on Twitter, and put it on LinkedIn and all these other places. But the idea was simply that this is going to impact people who use WordPress, and those people need to be aware of what's happening. They need to understand that this isn't something that they can wait to do. This is something they need to check out right now. And it was also to start getting the conversation, literally moving the conversation beyond just everyone is going to like this. So the video has been shared a bunch of places, like on Twitter and everything. But it also, let's see, hold on. Let me get my stats here. Because I posted it on LinkedIn, and it's been viewed 12,000 times on LinkedIn, and the majority of people who viewed it on LinkedIn are not the WordPress crowd. And the main feedback I'm getting is, when did this start?
Yeah.
Why did I not know about this? Which is exactly the point, right? That we've been working with this stuff in vacuum for a very long time. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen once the Try Gutenberg nag comes out with, what is it they're saying now, 4.9.8. I wonder when 4.9.8 is going to come out, because there are a lot of outstanding issues with Gutenberg that need to be addressed before they can put up the nag. Otherwise, a lot of people are going to be very annoyed.
And they were saying, end of July for 498.
I would say if they can't resolve the accessibility issues that are currently flagged as high priority, they can't put up the nag. Because there are things like, you can't currently use the date picker with a keyboard. Minor things like that, which are fundamentally wrong in web platform perspective. So anyway, it was a ploy to get people outside the WordPress community to pay attention.
So it needs to be done, I think. Right. Let's go on to the next story. Our guest panelist, Matt Medeiros, you've been on fire, Matt. I've really enjoyed your latest round of videos. If you're really interested in WordPress, you should go to Matt's YouTube channel and subscribe to it. It's just fantastic content. Like I say, I just think you've been on fire. So your latest video is also, I really thought you touched some great points. Would you mind giving the listeners and viewers a quick synopsis of some of the key points you were trying to make in that video, Matt?
Yeah, so WordPress is changing is just the title of the video. Just sort of some of the thoughts, a culmination of thoughts and my own thoughts and thoughts from others and interactions from other people of just how things, or how, at least from the lens that I'm using, of how the WordPress economy, both service side and product side, is really changing. Again, like at the top of the show, at the top of the video, I said that this is something that started, at least from my perspective, about a year and a half ago, within my own agency and other colleagues and other agencies around the space, sort of just feeling a little bit of a crunch. And whether or not that's the U.S. politics landscape, or just, it is what it is with WordPress. I'm not really sure. I'm not an economist at that level, but certainly some kind of crunch was happening. And certainly just this gut feeling from me internally that people weren't as excited about this software. And I don't know, or I do know that some of it has to do with Gutenberg, the introduction to Gutenberg. There will always be, pros and cons and people who are against it and for it. I totally get that. But there was just this feeling of like, like when a wave crashes on the shore and it sort of starts to retract back into the ocean. That's what I felt like. There wasn't that excitement anymore. And I just decided to turn on the camera and just chat about it. And some people share the opinions, especially in the comments, but more, I guess, not surprising, but a lot of people just DM me privately and they talk about, hey, I would love to say these same things. And it's like, why don't you? Why don't you say?
Why don't you? What do you think that's about, actually, Matt?
Well, a lot of people, number one, a lot of people just don't do it. They're not one to talk publicly about their thoughts and feelings. Some of them that just have business ties to this, so they are afraid to step on those eggshells. But I mean, there are people who have privately messaged me, just flipping the table on their whole business model now because of the upcoming introduction to Gutenberg. But that's just a compound effect of maybe where WordPress has been going these last 2 years anyway. Whether or not people use Gutenberg as an excuse to say, I'm done with WordPress, I don't know. But certainly people have just expressed that, a decline in client services work, a decline in product sales. For some, not everybody. But I think that the big winners you see out there have either shifted to a SaaS model or have plateaued. Plateaued isn't a bad thing. I think a lot of people who are just still plateaued are making, some of them, millions of dollars in plugin and theme sales, but certainly not that same hockey stick growth that we've witnessed up until this point, which again could just be normal market behavior. We're in this sort of maybe this little plateau, and that's what it is. And I think, at least the opinions that I expressed in that video, is this is where we will learn what the next step is for innovation for privately owned businesses, third-party plugins and themes, like this whole Gutenberg thing and introduction. Of course, I cap that all off with my typical thing of like, this is Jetpack plus Gutenberg play is going to be a huge monetization push for Automatic. I can't help but just hook on to the sort of pull quote I took from Matt Mullenweg's recent quote in, I think, TechCrunch or New York Post. I forget the acquisition of the membership platform that they bought, where he says they're looking to really take they're really looking to take WordPress.com from hundreds of millions to the billions of dollars. And I really just have to sit back and say, well, the only way you're really going to get there is going to be just more monetization through Jetpack. I mean, not the only way, but a huge chunk of it will be pushing through monetization. So, and I think Gutenberg will be one of those things that unlocks the door, where you're looking and all of a sudden you see a premium block and they're like, hey, you want to import your WooCommerce product super easy in this block? Buy this for, whatever, $10, or you must have a Jetpack Pro account to unlock these blocks. Not that I fault them for any of this. I think it's what a lot of people do. It's a typical monetization SaaS play. I just think it's something that we haven't experienced yet. And it's just going to be one of those things that makes it super easy for an end user to be like, oh, I can drag this contact form in here because I have Jetpack Pro. And I don't need to go looking for all of these other plugins. Of course, this is all just my own guesswork, but I just don't see how you go from hundreds of millions to billions, or if you can even have that thought process to not look at this as such a huge area to monetize. And I think that's what it'll unlock for Automatic and Matt. But also, hopefully, there's some opportunity in there for the rest of us to find something that we can unlock ourselves and not just feel like the world is collapsing on us.
That's great. What do you think, Adam?
I think WordPress is still WordPress, and Gutenberg isn't really going to change WordPress. You log into WordPress and it's like, holy cow, there's all these menu items, user accounts, settings. There's like 6 or 7 settings panels. There's all these new terminology and all this kind of stuff. So WordPress is always going to, until they change what happens when you click log in, people are always going to have that same feeling when you log into WordPress, like, holy cow, there's easier ways to potentially do this someplace else. I'll give you an example of this. I recently purchased a product. Probably some of you guys have already heard about this product. It's called Thrive Cart. And what that is it's a really simple hosted way of selling a product and then having an upsell and even kind of creating a mini funnel. And I was astonished at how easy it was to add a product and to get a shopping cart, to integrate it with PayPal. It was like so easy. And it just reminded me how, a SaaS platforms, some of them are doing a fantastic job of just making it dead simple, easy to get something done. But you log into WordPress and it's like, WooCommerce, really? There's like, 7 or 8 settings panels. There's a million settings. It's, it's just a lot more to it. And you're immediately like, forget this. So WordPress is always going to still be WordPress. But, as far as markets change, actually everything changes. Our economies change. Everything just naturally changes. Change is actually a very natural thing. And so things also evolve. And also, I think what I have seen, yes, change, but what I see is WordPress from a vendor standpoint, someone that's actually selling products in the WordPress ecosystem, it's a highly competitive, cutthroat group of people. You come out with something, about a month later, someone else has the same thing for half the price. It's very, very cutthroat. And so some of what Matt was just describing of potential things that would happen with Gutenberg being easy, you look at some of the page builder companies, right? So Elementor has a form builder. I don't need Gravity Forms, Caldera Forms, Happy Forms, this other forms. I don't need that anymore. It has a slider. I don't need Smart Slider and all that. So I can buy this one thing for $50, and I don't need these other couple dozen things, and I have the one user interface. So a lot of things have actually changed in the last year and a half, and they continue to change. But I think WordPress is still WordPress. So you would log into that sucker, and it's like, what do I do next? Not for us, okay, because we're in a bubble. All of us are in a bubble. But for people that are new to making a website, so there's always going to be that. I don't see that ever changing, and I think there's always going to be a business for implementers, a business for designers, especially high-end developers. Or if you're in that situation, you take John shifted his services. It's now focused on actually providing a service along with that, which is SEO and things along those lines. Anyways, I have some opinions too.
That's great. What did you think, John?
Yeah, Matt's video, I think you'll notice that it's one of his most popular videos that he's put out the last year, because it really struck a chord with a lot of people. And a lot of things that he said, I've also noticed. There's a few ways to make money in the WordPress ecosystem. You can do straight up client services. You could sell a product like a theme, a plugin, or a SaaS. You can teach people and sell courses. You can, sell hosting. And Gutenberg's development is one thing, but I think the diminishing buzz on WordPress is because the ecosystem is so huge. And I think in the past, the people who were in WordPress maybe 7-8 years ago, not as many people were a high-level developer in WordPress, and it was more special. And I think at this point, a lot of people know how to develop on WordPress to some degree. And I think in that way, the client services market is a little saturated at that point. And just saying we do WordPress websites is not special anymore. And you see some agencies are doing really good. You see some, and mostly serving the enterprise, that are doing just fine. But I think a lot of people that were doing client services are shifting toward things like selling courses or things like that to kind of get more of that income back. The one thing that I would be very interested in seeing, I do think that there's going to be a market that opens up for people selling Gutenberg blocks and things of that nature. And I think that people who are good in React, they're definitely going to have a time where they're highly in demand for a few years as that becomes more part of WordPress. But I'd be interested in seeing, because this Gutenberg thing is definitely a play, and people can deny it to themselves all they want, but Automatic is very much going to be competing with self-hosted WordPress sites. And that's going to affect hosting. It's going to affect agencies who sell that, because who they're trying to compete with is Wix, Weebly, Squarespace, and things like that, where you pay, you know, $50 a month and you get the hosting and you can drag and drop. I think that's really where you're going to see an impact. And if they're moving from hundreds of millions to billions, it's going to come from those people selling, you know, $1,000 to $3,000 to $5,000 websites at the bottom end, because people are just going to do it themselves.
Yeah, before I pass it over to Sally, is that I just think the competitive landscape has really changed for WordPress. You know, you've got Squarespace, Weebly, but almost in every industry sector, look at the membership learning management system, e-learning. You know, you've got Learnable. You've got a number of VC financed SaaS products that are competing directly with WordPress. You know, before that, really WordPress, if you wanted to do a membership website and you weren't looking at Joomla or some other open source platform, it was the natural platform to go to. That's changed quite considerably in the past 3 years. What do you think, Sally?
I think it's fascinating the way each of us has a glimpse of a different audience in some case, but kind of a different part of the part of the universe that makes up the users of WordPress and the sorts of agencies and things. I don't have the kind of platform that Matt or Adam does. But I was getting about halfway through Matt's video, and just kind of surprised at some of the things Matt was mentioning, because I don't know whether WordPress is considered trendy in a lot of circles. WordPress is not trendy because it's not like flavor of the month with the new developers, and but there's this thing called the Gartner hype cycle, and when stuff is most hyped, it usually you get a lot of people jumping on the bandwagon and making noise, and not very much. But once something sort of matures and gets wider adoption, there's much less hype, but you actually have a product that's more wide, there are more people using it and so on. But, I'm extremely busy this year. I have a lot of work, and it may have something to do with the fact that even though WP is in my business name, I am not out there pushing WordPress. It's a technology. It's a cool thing. I am pushing, so your website isn't working for you the way it is. Let me help you figure out how to make your website really serve your business. And I've had a few people where they were specifically looking for WordPress, but mostly a case of people who have things they want to accomplish, and they have a number of things they want to accomplish. And I think this is where WordPress is strong. If you just want to sell something and you have a few things to sell, a SaaS product that does or hosted service, something like Shopify, something like Thrivecart, that will let you sell a couple products, and that's all it does, is going to be better, because it's a very specific tool. If you just want to sell a course, you can go to a place where people are looking for courses, and you won't keep as much of the money, but you'll have people are going to be there looking for things, and you'll only see what you need. If you have a situation where you maybe want to sell some courses and do some membership and publish some events and have a blog and, this and that, WordPress is a good solution for it. And by that time, if you actually have a business that you want to spend your time running your business, you do want to hire somebody who can take care of that for you. So I think that at the end of the spectrum, where you have people who have more time than money, they're kind of just starting out, they're more on the do-it-yourselfers, end of things. They're more of the people I think that Adam deals with. They're going to be like, yay, excitement. We've got, page building tools. We've got this stuff. It's easier to do it ourselves. There's all these people who were earning money from that sort of client are going to have less work because it's easier for those people to do it themselves. And people whose business model was kind of based on let's shoehorn everything into WordPress because WordPress is flavor of the month are likely to have less work because most of the people who are out there don't care that much about the platform. They have a different perspective. But that the people, I'm pretty sure that the 10ups and human maids and crowd favorites of the world aren't suffering because that's not where their clients are not the people who are trying to save a few bucks here and there because they have more time than money. They want to pay somebody who has the expertise to guarantee them that it is going to work all the time. That's why they're paying for Pagely's hosting. Is that it's worth the money to them to know that they have the best. So I think how the economy, how these shifts affect you really depend on where you are. I agree that there are going to be some situations in which people may decide, oh well, if I just pay a little extra money to Automatic, I'm going to have everything I need. Well, then do it. If that's what you need, do it. I gave a presentation at WordCamp Los Angeles in 2016 about whether WordPress is the best tool for the job, and it's like, look, if you come across a client and that they want like a 5-page brochure site, send them over to Wix. WordPress is probably not a good answer for them, and you don't have to like decide that you're going to become a somebody who builds Wix websites if that's not what you want to do.
Yeah, I think they're great points. Thank you so much, Shelley. And what do you think, Morton?
I think when I watched the video, I immediately got this picture in my head of this is what's happening in the whole web community. It's not just happening in WordPress. If you go to major events like an event apart, for instance, you'll see that the shift over the past couple of years in the audience has gone from freelancers to in-house developers. The last one I went to, they asked the question, how many of you are freelance? And I think there were like 5 people out of 1,000 that were freelance. And it's funny because like in that context, that event is designed for freelancers. So the fact that their entire audience is now in-house says a lot. If you look at a lot of the major players in the web industry that used to be, the people that launched all the new products and wrote all the best articles and everything, they've all been eaten by companies, right? Like all these huge things that we used to rely on for information don't exist anymore. And all these voices that used to be in the web community have simply vanished because they're working the entire company, or they were bought by, Amazon or Spotify or someone else, and they're just in-house. And I think that's just what's happening because the platform is maturing. The web is no longer this Wild West playground where everyone can just come in and do whatever. It's become this very complicated system where you need to know what you're doing. And as a result, the companies that hire developers have realized we need to actually have someone in-house to do this stuff. We can no longer just have some random person in the company manage our website, or we can't keep outsourcing this to some other company and then have them screw us over or produce crappy solutions that don't work for us or try to sell us some cookie cutter thing. At the same time, I have seen exactly what Matt's talking about in terms of this. The talk of WordPress seems to have gone away. I also think that is the maturing of the overall user community. And I've seen this in other places too. I had this conversation with my wife the other day. We were here in Vancouver. We had this huge blogging community that was very, very famous. Like there were people in Vancouver who were internationally famous for blogging before blogging really was this big thing, right? And we had a blogger meetup where you could go to the blogger meetup and you'd see like 10, 15 people that you knew who they were based on their blogs. And you would have people travel from other countries to come to this event called Northern Voice, which was like the preeminent blogging conference. And it just died in 2012. The conference just went away and it's never been resurrected. And what I noticed was almost every single person who was considered the most prominent bloggers at the time are now no longer blogging. They're just doing other things. They're running their own companies. They're, they're professional photographers or writers or whatever it is that they started up as bloggers. So, and you can see this in the WordPress community too. A lot of the main contributors to WordPress have moved on to other platforms or have just dropped out of the conversation, have dropped out of core contribution, have dropped out of everything. And we have this whole new generation of people who come in with other expectations. And I think this has to do with that upwards rise of WordPress. We are now at 31%, and everyone is saying we're going to get to 50. The difficulty level of climbing from 31% to 50 is going to be significantly higher than going from 0 to 31%, because we're already saturating the entire market that we have access to. And any gains that we're going to chase now will be gains that come at the behest of some other company, like that some other platform has to now fail miserably for WordPress to take over that space. And Gutenberg is probably an attempt at solving that problem. But I think we need to accept that it's quite possible we need to fight to retain the 30% rather than try to gain more space. Personally, I think it's irresponsible to try to make it to 50, because we shouldn't be 50% of the web. That's a monopoly. That's not healthy in any way. But I agree with most of what Matt's saying, simply because this is something that's happening in all of the web and all the internet, just not just us. And I think we need to just accept this and then move forward with it and try to figure out how we keep the people that are already in WordPress, not in just that they use it, but that they contribute back to it and help the platform grow and become better, instead of trying to always chase the next user. Because if we're chasing the next user, then the existing users are going to drop off on the back and move elsewhere. And that would be quite unfortunate, because they are the ones that made this happen to begin with.
Oh, thank you so much, panel. I'm going to go for our break, but before I go for my break, I want to talk about a new sponsor for WP-Tonic, and I'm excited that they have decided to become a sponsor of the show, and that's WP Fusion. What is WP Fusion? It's freaking amazing, actually. It really helps you with automation. It really puts your kind of email or marketing automation systems like ActiveCampaign, ConvertKit, MailLite, or Agile CRM, and it will communicate with these platforms and enable you as a developer or as a website owner to do the most amazing things. If you're got a membership site or e-commerce site, it really has a drag and drop interface, and you can set up all certain triggers that will send email or text messages to specific people in your lists in these systems. It really is quite amazing. And I've got some really good news. This is not the cheapest product, but we have an exclusive offer that you can only get through WP-Tonic. If you go to WP Fusion and you put in this coupon code WP-Tonic, all in upper cases, you will get 25% off, and that's only offered through this show. So if that's interesting, I would suggest that you go to WP Fusion and have a look at the product. There will be banners and the token code in the show notes of this episode. And I would suggest that you go and have a look at it and buy it. I have. So we're going to go for our break, folks, and we'll be back next week. Next in a little while, sorry. We're coming back, not next week. God. On to the next story. A Freudian slip there. SparkToro raises a very unusual round of funding, and we're open sourcing our documents. Well, this is a company started by somebody that I have enormous respect for. Came on the show as well. That's Rand Fishkin, a former CEO of Moz. And he started this company and he's funded it in a slightly different way. And I thought it was an interesting article. What did you think, Morton?
I didn't read it, so I have no opinion. I also think the whole funding thing is just like, okay, you guys go do the funding thing, I'll do other stuff. So I have no meaningful input.
All right, on to the next one. Is that your attitude, Matt?
No, I read it when he first published it, and I really enjoyed it because, and whenever somebody is super transparent about this whole process, it's great. I love how transparent he was, to even showing some of the clippings of the emails, and he shared some lessons about how he pitched it to people. And I found it interesting towards the end where he talks about, well, why not bootstrap? Why not keep this going and just do it? He said, like, I could just do consulting and do whatever everybody else does, bootstrapping. You're living two lives. And it was interesting for him to just come out and say, look, we just didn't want to take that time. Like, we know we can get money. We're going to do it in this kind of open and honest way. We're only going to take as much as we need, quote unquote. But I thought it was great. I played with the product a little bit, like that, the free, like, Twitter profile analyzer. It still sort of does, like, vanity metric things for me anyway. I don't know how powerful of a tool it is. It's like how influential a Twitter account is, but it's still based off of, like, how many followers you have, times how many retweets you get. And it still doesn't feel like it's something of magic, I guess I should say. But I am happy for him. I do have a lot of respect for him. Sort of one of the first internet entrepreneurs I ever really followed from way back in the day. So I enjoyed the article, and I think the information in there is great. Even if you're out there looking to raise $10,000 for your seed product or seed funding for your product.
I thought it was very linked. The reason why I put the story in, it was also very linked to one of your other videos when you were talking about the recent sale of Studio Press. And when you were saying, in that video, get from 0 to $1 million is hard enough, but then $1 million to 10 million, you need loads of cash. Yeah. And I think that's what he was saying in his post, is that and he said they want to build a really serious business. He wants this to be really successful, but he didn't want, it's not going to be a unicorn. It's not going to be $1 billion company. So he doesn't want to go down the traditional VC route because that's not what he wants to build. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was actually going to bring that up. The sort of like what Morton was saying before about WordPress going from 30% to 50%. Like, you would think that, okay, we're already 30%. We're over halfway there. It should be easy. I think it's more difficult. Like I said in that Studio Press video, when you're at that $5 to $6 million range, it sounds great from the outside. People are like, wow, you're making that much money selling WordPress themes. Yeah, but you also have a staff of whatever they had, maybe 30 people on that team, like support, developers, designers, all of that stuff. It's a lot of payroll, never mind marketing and sponsorship and keeping everything going. It adds up really quick. And I think he's right. Like, I think if you are going to compete, how long do you want to wait? It's that organic route. You can wait, but he's got at least the experience and the time is right for getting money. I think a lot of people have money right now, investors anyway, to throw at these kinds of things. And I'd also, people are interested in sort of the VC and the seed stuff, seed investing, angel investing. Jason Calacanis is opening up seed funding for his startup, inside.com, which is a news organization. It's just news articles delivered through email newsletters. And his recent pitch for people to invest is eye-opening. Like, this article is a lot of great nuggets in there and how he presents the business and the run rate, and he has a pitch deck in there. So if you're into that kind of thing and you want to get some insights, that's another good one to look at.
What did you
It's
think?
also interesting. I don't want anyone to come here and think that they're going to have this new way of raising money. I mean, number one, if you look at the list of people, if you look at how much he raised, And then you look at the list of the names of them. This is like lunch money to these people.
Yeah.
Number one, you look at the names. And number two, these people did it because of the name Rand. They didn't do it if it was Adam, if it was anyone here, or you listening right now, sorry, not to offend you, you immediate delete on that email. You know what I mean? Who's this joker? So, I mean, that's just the reality of it. But we all do have our own circles. But like, just I'll finish this up. He raised $1.3 million from, I think there's like 30 people. This is lunch money to these guys. You know what I mean? Heck, I could have afforded to be one of these guys. I didn't get the email. Anyways.
Oh, but no, it's a good point. Obviously, you know, yeah, you're totally correct, Adam. They're investing. It's not for those people. Like you say, it's loose change almost. Secondly, they invested because it's Rand. You know, somebody else that didn't have a track record, you would have to bootstrap it to a higher level. But what I'm saying is it's linked to what Matt was saying in his studio press. Yes, you would have to prove the concepts to a much higher level through actual sales. But if you wanted to move that company above $1 million in what Matt pointed out, you then probably would have to get investment if you wanted to accelerate the process. And what I'm saying, why I put that article is that I think that is achievable, Adam. But no, you're totally correct.
I was just saying that we have our circles as well, you know what I mean? So I know people I could email. Everybody knows people that have money that would be interested in something. I just thought it was pretty hilarious, though, you know what I mean? When I looked through, I mean, you got the co-founder of Buffer in here. I mean, you've got, you know, the co-founder of Drip and Micro. I mean, these guys, it's pocket change to them, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, let me just like Rand go here and give him his $50,000. You know what I mean? It's like not a big deal to these guys.
Yeah, but I suppose
you don't pick poor people to be your angel investor.
No, that's true. What did you think of it in general, Sally? What's up?
I'm always happy to see, you know, stories about companies that are not pursuing the kind of insane dream that is the wild, deluded fantasy of most funding in Silicon Valley. The kind of, you know, fundraising that venture capitalists do, because it's like, yeah, you know, and we are going to put money in because what we want is stupendous growth, and, you know, to take over the market within a few years and make, you know, billions of dollars. And that's just not going to happen for most companies. And that probably isn't where most companies should go. And we've heard from Pagely about the, you know, choice to and advantages of bootstrapping. And that's not for everybody. But I have seen cases, you know, outside of tech also, where a company said, well, okay, we've made it this far with, you know, the money our founders invested into us, plus just our natural growth, and we have high sales, but we're reaching a point where we are growing fast, and to support that, we need to raise some money, and we need to make some choices about how we're doing it. And there's a company I'm thinking of where what they said is, well, we're a private company, we want to stay private, but we're going to sell some more stock. We're looking to raise this much money. They've gotten about 600 million so far out of what they want. You know, people who have something to invest, believe that this is a good enough chance that they're going to get a solid return, but who are not trying to find this, like, you know, 1 in a million super blockbuster, whatever, which just seems a lot more reasonable to me, because, you know, that there are not going to be that many super blockbusters, but there can be a number of very successful companies that have a large market that is still not worldwide domination.
Yeah, I think, and also I just think he's a great guy. He's we had a couple of Zoom conversations. He's an extremely busy individual, but he agreed to have a couple of conversations with me, and I just got a feeling he's just a great guy. I also like to say that I had some really good news this week. Zband, the CEO of Concatulate, has agreed to become a mentor and advisor for Mailrite, which I'm very pleased about, and I'm moving that product forward.
I would say that just one last bit about this. I'm a mentor in an accelerator program in my area where all of these startups come through, and it's like this 90-day acceleration of getting them to try to get them to market. And most investors are going to invest in the individual or the team versus, the product, which is probably why it's so easy for Rand to go out and get, new capital for this idea. And the guy that I'm mentoring now is trying to launch this app. And when he presents the product, this app that he's building, there is it's in the fitness industry. He's a very fit individual, but when he talks about it, he is not fired up. He is not saying this is the best, fill in the blank app for this fitness.
Is he English?
No, he's not. No, he's, but he's very monotone about it. But when he talks about all the stuff he's doing,
is he Scandinavian then?
No.
All right.
When he talks about the technology, he is fired up. He loves to talk about what he's doing with Amazon Web Services and how he's building the app and all of the technologies. And I said to him the other day, do you really care about this product that you're building? And he got offended because he was like, well, yeah, because I've had people sign up and I've done a beta and people have signed up. I said, yeah, but would you get in front, because part of this program is he gets in front of judges and they can win up to $15,000 of money in this program. When you get up in front of these potential investors or judges, you have to show some kind of emotion, you're super excited to solve this problem and this is your product, it's the best thing on earth, but you don't feel that. I don't feel that when you talk about it. And now he's coming around. He's like, you know what? I think I am pivoting to something else about more of the technology side, because he realized that he really isn't as excited about the product. So I think a lot of people are going to give money to the great founder or team versus the product idea.
All right, I'm going to move on to the next story. Tech journalist, chairman, mum founder, Sally Lacy on the power of being polarizing. Who wants to start off? What about Morton? What do you think of that one, Morton? Did you read that one?
I did. There is a tendency in our current discourse to, on the one hand, create polarizing commentary specifically targeted only at the people who agree with you, and then ignoring anyone who disagrees with you. And on the other hand, deliberately being controversial just for the sake of being controversial to get attention. I think what she's talking about is how you can't, doing those things is not a good idea. But at the same time, if you try to speak to everyone and reduce your opinions and try to, soften up the message to make it appealing to everyone, you're actually hampering progress because you're not allowing people a space where they can properly discuss things. Maybe the biggest problem that we have because of the internet is it's too easy for people to attack the person over the content of the conversation. So there are a lot of conversations we cannot have on the internet simply because if you voice an opinion, you're immediately then, that opinion is then rejigged into fitting some sort of archetype that the person you are talking to would like to impose on you. And then from there, they'll make judgments on you, not because based on who you are or what you say, but based on this archetype they're imagining you fit into, So I agree that this concept of actually being controversial, if the controversy you're creating is your opinion, is important. And having these frank discussions is important. But we can only do that in a space where everyone agrees to some basic terms. Like, for instance, be not civil, but be accurate in your conversations. Converse around the topic rather than around the person saying something. Don't pass moral judgment onto someone and saying well, by saying that you are de facto evil every single time there's a conversation that comes up. So yeah, that's my initial.
But this is like the world we live in. That's like never going to happen. You know, if anyone's willing or daring to say their opinion, there's 100% going to be someone that doesn't agree with your opinion. And then bam, trolls come right on in. I'm sure, Matt, you made that video. I didn't read the comments, but I'm sure there's people that might have been not so nice in there. It's whenever you decide, you know, I've got people that love what I do, and I got people that absolutely despise and hate what I do. I don't care. But whenever anyone expresses their opinion about anything, here come the trolls. Here come the trolls. It's impossible.
Adam,
can I just interrupt?
Hold on a second. When someone comes to you and they start being aggressive and trolly, what do you do?
I immediately, okay, let me go back. The old Adam used to fight back. You hit me, I'm going to hit you back 10 times harder. The new Adam just clicks, you know, hide all comments on this channel and then moves on to the next thing, because if I let it simmer, it will affect me that day and I won't be able to get done what I need to get done. And actually, not many people know this. I've actually outsourced moderation of my comments to my wife. So my wife can log in and she can see the things. And sometimes she wants to go to bed, but she'll, you know, hide it so I don't have to see, because we're still human. You know what I mean? It's hard to not let the negativity in. So that's what I do.
Okay, so the reason I asked is, there are two fallacies that float around in the web community around this discourse thing. One is don't feed the trolls, which is a really stupid approach. Sorry. The other one is ignore the comments, which is equally stupid because you're blocking the discourse. What I've found personally, and I can only talk from my personal experience and those that I've coached into doing this, is when people come into a conversation and they're being ridiculous and trolly, the way to stop them from continuing is actually to respond to them in a completely rational way. So when they say, you know, oh, you're stupid because your eyebrows are crooked or whatever, if you just go, you know, then you just respond by saying, so this conversation is about da-da-da-da. Here are my views. How do you respond to that specifically? And then anytime they come back and troll, you just keep doing that. And you're shaking your head, but if you go to my Twitter feed and you look at the stuff I'm posting, right? And you notice how no one is attacking me for it, it's because when people choose to attack me for it, other followers on my Twitter feed step in and say, hey, there's no point arguing with this guy over this because he'll just come back at you with the factual conversation.
Yeah, but you're European. You like me. You like a good argument.
It's a thing that we have to agree on, that we have to say, you know, we can let the trolls win, which is, you know, either not feeding them, which just makes the machine run on its own, or to block them, which just makes the machine run on its own, or we can just elevate the conversation. Say, like, you come in with garbage, I'm going to return to you with factual material and force you to have this conversation properly. Right? I will respond only to the intent of what you said, not the actual wording you said, and make sure that this conversation is not fun for you.
Yeah, I understand the idealism in that, but the real world, in my experience, how that happens is comment comes in, I'm obsessed about it for like 20 minutes. I spend 20 minutes writing a response. Now I've wasted 40 minutes.
But that's because you're obsessed about it.
And for me, it's about efficiency, right? I got other things to do this day. I don't want to spend the time being obsessed about something. I want to move on to the next thing.
Can I interrupt slightly? Because I just want to put this to the panel in specific. I chose this story and I read it, and both you and Morton, your insight, I got really hot under the collar as I was reading this article, not for its main purpose. I despise this woman, you know, everything she stands for. You know, she goes to this lobby thing, this inner group, and it's the thing about WordPress. There's certainly individuals that run inner circles. You go off, fly off to some foreign country, and they have this kind of secret meeting where they're building influence. I despise these fuckers. I really do despise them. And then
you're not alone.
I really despise them. This kind of Freemasonry type of influence that they try and build, which goes against every democratic equality principle at the core of my heart. And then she talks, and then then they have this women only co-center. For fuck's sake, grow up. You're a grown woman. I don't think Sally needs a co-working space just for fucking women.
Oh, you're just wrong, dude. You need to back that shit way
hang on here. I don't personally need it this moment. I absolutely believe in the existence of a lot of women-only things because women need that. Now, I do not like.
For God's sake, grow up, women. You're a woman.
No. You are dead wrong. Like,
you're wrong.
Yeah, honey, you have not been the, one of a handful of women in a room where everyone assumes that because you're female, your job is to get the coffee.
What's that? You should tell them they need to grow up. Fundamentally.
Fundamentally, they do. And
does anyone want to dig him out of this hole he dug?
No, not really.
I don't think I've dug a hole at all. I've just been.
However, yes. I mean, I think on the one hand, the point that you will never get anywhere if you are afraid to offend people by saying what you believe in, which is different from you go out deliberately provoking people because that's a kind of clickbait thing. If you try to make yourself bland in order not to offend people, you'll be so bland that you also don't have any fans and you don't get anywhere. And I think that, I despise all the kind of, secret Kabbalistic kinds of things too. I think she's kind of making the point that this is the reality of how shit gets done. And if you want to achieve certain things in certain spaces, that's kind of how it goes. Although there are some of those societies, from which, to which you will never be admitted, no matter what you do, if you weren't part of them to begin with. But I think absolutely that groups that have experienced discrimination need places for support. So it's I don't like her. I don't like everything she does. She makes some valid points, and she may be contributing something worthwhile in spite of not being the nicest person you've met.
So to fight exclusion, the way to fight exclusion and to be given a fair shot, which is all that anybody should ask for, to be given opportunity and a fair shot. The way to really fight that is to do exactly what you, in that article, you complain about. That is the way. I don't think so.
I'm going to throw this out there. Like a few years ago here in Sacramento, there was a group of women that got together, and they were trying to fund this venture project called, at the time it was called My Swirl. I don't think it's active anymore, but there was a load of women that were trying to build basically like a new social network. Tracy Seville, Tina Reynolds, some other people whose names are escaping me. They're people you can follow in my timeline. But, if let's face reality, tech funding is mostly white dudes, white bros, like funding other like white tech bros. And if you're Black, if you're Asian, if you're a woman, if you're Hispanic or anything, your chances of getting funding are way, way lower. So I think it makes sense for, women to support each other in tech because, like Sally said, it's automatically assumed you're there to like go, fetch the coffee or something. And you even see it like now in these big tech companies, like, in Uber and stuff like that, where charges of sexism. I mean, it's rampant. So yeah, women, minorities, anybody like that, pool together because, you might have some allies, but you're going to get a lot farther if you like watch each other's backs. And I'm totally down for that.
Hey, I want to hear what Matt has to say on this before I tear Jonathan down by the seat.
I'll make it quick so you can get on with it. I mean, I just know of her from, I think it was TechCrunch days and then Pando. I mean, I used to enjoy some of the stuff she wrote, but then when she went on her own, she really did get that with that sensationalism all the time, and it became like she was writing soap opera stuff. Not soap opera like maybe gossip stuff is a better word, like gossip stuff about other venture capital and other people out there, which I get. Like she's trying to expose some of it, but then it just became like, okay, now you're just doing this clickbaity stuff. That's my only really take on her. In fact, I didn't even know she was launching something new until I read this article.
So this is kind of an example of what I was talking about. We can either discuss the topic on hand, or we can discuss the person. Now, leaving alone the completely uninformed bullshit from Jonathan around women and minorities and how that shit, which I will have to educate him on later.
Gone, mate. I can't feel my ego.
Yes, well, you know, it's hard to see the forest when you're a tree.
Exactly. Like this is not you are.
White boy.
Yeah, you need to just abandon that entire way of thinking. But the interesting thing here is this discourse we're having in the web and the internet community right now around how do we have conversations about complicated issues without those conversations becoming more about the person having the conversation than the actual topic? And how do we have conversations where we can actually discuss things without everything just exploding into these huge polarizing controversies where we can't have conversations at all? I mean, how do we create a forum where you can come in and discuss things on a factual basis and walk away friends? That's something we used to be able to do. I mean, when you go to countries outside the United States and Canada, you will find politicians who are married to other politicians who are on the opposing side, right? That's unheard of in where we are right now. I have a friend who's Lutheran minister who's married to an atheist, and they have children, right? These concepts seem really foreign to people, that this is how it used to be. You can actually have these types of relationships with people and have proper, frank discussions about issues without it becoming extremely complicated to have them. But it requires sticking on topic, not talking about the people, but talking about the issues, unless the issue is a person, and then agreeing to terms on how to have these conversations so that we don't get stuck in this endless just throwing crap at each other all the time.
Morton is so much more adult than the rest of us.
Yeah, but what you know, you're going to have a go at me. What's that got anything to do with what I had to say?
No, I am having a go at you because your views are misinformed and you're spewing a bunch of crap that isn't actually.
I don't think my views are misinformed.
Okay, do you want me to run this down for you?
Canadian slave flake.
No. Here. I'll run it down for you.
It's Friday the 13th.
Statistically speaking, women are paid less than men for the same jobs. This is proven. This is a fact. Statistically speaking, men who go in to seek funding for something is like 80% more likely to get funding than women.
I totally agree with you. Totally unfair.
If you are a woman and you go to a gym and there's a man there, there's a high likelihood that you will feel uncomfortable simply because of the male presence. Because that person, I'm telling you that the people that you are talking about have other experiences than you, and you are projecting your experience onto them, thinking that you know how they feel. Instead of saying, I'm a man, I don't have a problem with this, therefore I think it's stupid. You should be thinking, maybe I should listen to these people and see why they think it's necessary to have this. And if they tell me this allows them to progress, then they should be allowed to do this. We ran a workshop here in Vancouver, which was a women speaking WordPress workshop, to see if we could get women to speak at our conferences. Out of that workshop came 15 new speakers that we were not aware of. The reason why they hadn't submitted before was simply because they were so worried about going into a space with a bunch of people who were criticizing them. I know you disagree with this. I'm just giving you actual facts here. You can't, you're coming at this from an uninformed angle. You need to inform yourself and actually talk to people about why these issues exist. Go back and do research on things that were written in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s on this. This is well documented. This is not controversial at all. This is just established factual truth. And
when my brother was in college.
Can I just say something? I'm not disputing everything you just pointed out. I'm disputing why they feel that way. I suppose George, I've been reading too much Jordan Peterson for my own.
Oh, okay, that's your mistake right there.
No, I totally agree with
that. All right, hello. Could I actually speak to this? Being the only female in this group, Right. When my brother was in college, he started college while I was still in college myself, but he was dating somebody, he mentioned in a letter to me, and he asked her, so she was doing women's studies, and he asked her, well, why don't they have men's studies? And she said, they do. It's called history. And I knew I was very close to a lot of people in the Black community. Almost all of them, I was at an Ivy League university, right? Almost all of them had grown up in mostly white communities, never really had an opportunity to identify with their history as African Americans. And while they were at school, they joined, traditionally Black sororities and fraternities for a certain kind of support. Doesn't mean that they decided they were never going to move in environments where they were mixed. It was the idea that you want to have a place where you feel safe in expressing yourself and being who you are, so that you can recharge in order to deal with that. And I'm sure everybody needs that experience. Whether it may not be politically acceptable to have your gentleman's club anymore, even though that was always kind of there, right? There were men only places always where the men went and did the business and the women were not allowed through the door. And on the golf course and all of these places from which women were excluded, there is less of that exclusion, but it's still tough. It's still, being female and getting in a dispute with somebody online or off, if that, you have to wonder, is that person going to assault me? Is that person going to, provoke other people to assault me? For God's sake, Kathy, why can't I remember her name? Got death threats in the early 2000s and ended up having to leave the country, basically because she spoke in public about how we should make software that does not make the user think I suck. And there are huge personal attacks leveraged against women for saying anything. So yeah, you do need some spaces to be in and to be encouraged in. Now, I see a lot of women in the WordPress community. I see a lot of women in my meetup. I see a lot of women speaking in my meetup, and I haven't gone out of my way specifically to encourage women. But I think part of it is just the fact that I'm a woman leading the meetup, and they see me speaking, and so they feel a little more like maybe they can get up and lead a meetup. There is still a metric shed load of work to be done. And I have always been fairly comfortable operating in mostly male environments. And if somebody, thinks I'm supposed to be the secretary, it's like, oh, well, you're stupid. But not everybody feels like that. And if you have actually been in an environment where you were brutally harassed, physically assaulted, etc., it's going to be a whole lot harder for you, and you need some extra support. And if a person needs extra support because they're an introvert and they can go out and do these networking things, but then they really need a lot of recharge time alone in their room with their computer, say, oh, well, that's just stupid. You should be able to be around people all the time.
I see your point totally, Sally, and you made very good points. The only comment, and I'm going to end this conversation. I know it's Adam never joined in; he was too wise. Is that I do find it difficult to accept, to fight exclusion. The way you deal with exclusion is to make a female group and you exclude males. I just find it's a bit like racism, To fight racism, the way you fight it is to become a racist group yourself. I just do not follow it myself. But that's my problem, isn't it? I think we've had a great discussion. I think we've covered some fantastic stuff. Matt, how can people find more about you and what you're up to, Matt?
Well, if this episode goes up on the internet, you can find me.
It was already up. It was live.
You can find me at WPCrafter.com. I'm not who you say I am right here. Matterport.com and Pagely.com.
Oh, just Sally, how can people find out more about you?
You can find me at WPFangirl.com. I am at Sally Getch on Twitter and most other places. If you can spell my name, you can find me. I am unique on the internet.
And Adam, how can people find out more about you?
Well, you can check me out on YouTube, youtube.com/WPCrafter. Leave a comment, but be nice. Let's not test Morton's logic with everything, because if you're not, I'm just going to delete you.
Well, it won't be you. It'll be Adam's wife, you know. Hi. Morton, how can people find out more about you?
Go to YouTube and search for Empathy and Acceptance in Design and Community, a talk I did at WordCamp Europe in 2016 that covers this exact topic and explains why I care about this stuff. Also, I do courses at LinkedIn Learning, where you can find me, or you can go and find me on Twitter. I am Morten, because that's my name. Not the Morten, that's a Norwegian journalist. The MOR10 version, which is me.
Oh,
although sending messages to the Norwegian journalists is a lot of fun too.
Yeah, it must possibly in some ways, but there we go. John, how can people find out more about you and what you're up to?
You can find me at my website, which is lockdownseo.com. You can also find me on my YouTube channel. You can search either John J. Locke, Lockdown Design, Lockdown SEO. I should pop up, and definitely come check out the videos. Leave a comment or two.
That's great. And if you want to find out about me, go to WP-Tonic. You can leave all the comments you want. I will personally reply to them, and I adopt the Morton mythology about doing it. We'll see you next week, where we're going to be discussing WordPress, the internet in general, and just having a really fantastic, insightful discussion. We'll see you next week, folks. Bye.
Bye.